What starts as a simple bond hearing quickly turns into a tense, unpredictable exchange that leaves the judge questioning whether the defendant will even return for court. A day earlier, Gianna Ballerini had been at a local shopping center when she got into a confrontation with a police officer. According to the report, the situation escalated when she refused to cooperate, and officers arrested her on the spot. Now she's in court, standing before Judge Stacia Buchanan, waiting to find out whether she'll be released on bond or remain in custody. But almost immediately, the hearing begins to unravel. Judge Buchanan tries to confirm the defendant's identity, carefully reading the name written in the file. She hesitates, repeating it to make sure she's pronouncing it correctly. "Are you how do you say it? Giannina Ballerini?" she asks. But the judge's question is met with confusion, not just from the defendant, but from the paperwork itself. Buchanan pauses and looks through the documents again, then bluntly admits something is off. She tells the courtroom she doesn't have the defendant listed correctly and doesn't even have a complete file under that name. For a moment, it's unclear whether she's dealing with the wrong person or the wrong paperwork. The courtroom staff confirms she does have the correct file, but the uncertainty hangs in the air. The judge keeps flipping through the documents, trying to make sense of what she's seeing. Meanwhile, Ballerini makes a claim that instantly changes the mood. She insists she is the wife of a Saudi prince, specifically a 37-year-old man named Mohammed Al Saud. It's the type of statement that would sound unbelievable anywhere, but in a courtroom, during a bond hearing, it raises immediate concerns about stability, credibility, and whether the defendant understands what's happening. Judge Buchanan doesn't argue with her. She keeps the hearing moving and begins reading the complaint out loud, because regardless of what Ballerini says about her identity, the court still has charges to review. The judge explains that Ballerini is accused of assaulting and resisting Officer Erica Hoffman, a police officer with the Lansing Police Department. The complaint alleges that Ballerini assaulted, battered, wounded, resisted, obstructed, opposed, or endangered the officer, knowing or having reason to know that the officer was performing her official duties. The judge makes it clear this isn't a minor accusation. She tells Ballerini the charge is a felony, punishable by up to 2 years in prison and/or a $2,000 fine. But the moment the judge begins speaking, Ballerini interrupts. Judge Buchanan immediately shuts it down. She tells her directly, in a firm but controlled tone, that she cannot yell over the judge. The judge explains that Ballerini is in court because she has been arrested, and now the judge's job is to read the charges and go through the process. But instead of listening, Ballerini argues back, flatly denying the judge's authority. She repeats over and over that reading the complaint isn't your job. Each time the judge tries to continue, Ballerini pushes back harder, insisting that the judge is wrong and that the process is not being handled correctly. The judge's patience starts to thin, but she stays professional. Still, the tension builds quickly. At one point, Judge Buchanan warns her that she is dangerously close to being held in contempt. The judge points out that calling the judge a vulgar insult is not only disrespectful, it can have real consequences. It's a serious warning, and the courtroom becomes noticeably quiet. The judge pauses, letting the threat of contempt sit in the air, and asks if Ballerini wants to keep going down this path. For a moment, Ballerini does stop speaking, and the judge takes that opportunity to move forward. With the outburst temporarily over, Judge Buchanan shifts to the next issue, legal representation. She asks whether Ballerini wants a public defender to help her with the case and to provide her side of the story. But the answer she receives isn't a simple yes or no. Instead, Ballerini begins making demands, starting with the gender of the lawyer who will represent her. When Judge Buchanan asks if she wants a public defender assigned, Ballerini tries to add a condition, as if she's ordering a service instead of requesting legal support. The judge immediately makes the rule clear. Ballerini does not have the right to request a specific gender for the attorney assisting her. Buchanan calls the request unreasonable and reminds her that court-appointed counsel does not work that way. In other words, the court provides representation based on availability and need, not personal preference. The judge's response is direct, and it reinforces what this hearing has already shown. Ballerini is not approaching this situation with the mindset of someone cooperating with the process. As the hearing continues, Judge Buchanan attempts to gather basic information that would normally help determine whether the defendant can be released today. One of the first things the judge asks is whether Ballerini has a local address where she can reliably receive mail. That question matters because the court needs a way to contact the defendant and ensure they receive court notices, hearing dates, and legal information. But Ballerini does not provide clear, stable contact information, and that creates a serious problem because bond decisions depend heavily on whether the court believes someone will return for future appearances. At that point, the judge turns to the defense side for input. She addresses the person representing Ballerini at the moment and asks if there is anything to add that might help the court make a bond decision today. The response is measured and realistic. Based on the lack of a criminal record, the defense requests a personal recognizance bond, meaning Ballerini would be released without paying, based only on her promise to return to court. But even the defense acknowledges an issue. They still need a local contact information. The request is not made with confidence. It comes with the understanding that without a stable address or reliable ties to the area, release becomes harder to justify. Then, the defense adds something else, and it's a major clue to how serious this situation may be. If the court is planning to keep Ballerini in custody, the defense asks that she be seen by psychiatric services. It's not presented as a dramatic statement. It's offered as a practical request, likely based on her behavior and the way she's communicating in court. In bond hearings, attorneys don't casually request psychiatric evaluation unless there's a real concern that the defendant's mental state could be affecting their judgment, their comprehension, or their ability to comply with court orders. Judge Buchanan listens and then delivers her conclusion. She says that based on the conversation in court that day, she does not believe Ballerini will appear for future court dates if she is released. She points directly to the combative nature of the interaction as one of her key concerns. In other words, the judge isn't focusing only on the charge itself, she's also weighing the defendant's attitude, behavior, and the likelihood that she'll follow court instructions. That is exactly what bond is designed to measure, not guilt or innocence, but risk. Because of those concerns, Judge Buchanan sets bond at $10,000 cash or surety. That means she must pay the amount in full or use a bond service to secure her release. It's not the highest bond ever seen, but it's high enough to show the judge considers her a serious flight risk. And because it is cash or surety, she cannot simply sign paperwork and leave. She must come up with money or a financial guarantee. The court is sending a clear message. This defendant's behavior and unpredictability make release too risky without strong conditions. As the hearing concludes, the outcome becomes clear. Ballerini does not make bond and remains in custody. Her case is still pending, meaning the charges have not yet been resolved, and the court process is continuing. But in the meantime, she is undergoing a mental health evaluation as requested. That evaluation will likely play an important role in what happens next, both in terms of her ability to participate in her defense and the court's decisions about custody going forward. In the end, this hearing serves as an example of how quickly a bond proceeding can shift when a defendant's behavior raises questions about cooperation and stability. The judge's job is not only to apply the law, but also to protect the integrity of the court process. And in this case, Judge Buchanan made it clear she was not willing to gamble on whether Ballerini would come back.